For the 8th year in a row, the Battle of the Real HU went to Hampton. What happened and what was our biggest takeaways? Mason Smith joins the show to answer both of those two glaring questions. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, of course, Sam Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day, every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. For your first or place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, we'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Tennessee State versus Tennessee Tech. I thought it was the epitome of close but no cigar, and I'll break down why I felt that was the case. However, we'll kick off today's episode with the battle for the real HU, Howard versus Hampton, and for the 8th year in a row, Hampton has came out victorious. I have Mason Smith with me. He was live in person at the battle for the real HU, Howard versus Hampton. So I wanted to make sure I brought him on, had him talk about the game, because I ain't really with the box score scouting, but I was able to tell a couple of things. And I would say my biggest takeaway is that Hampton keeps a running back. They always keep a running back, whether that is Elijah Burris. And in this game, you had Jaquan Snipes, who went for 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then last week, I felt like Tamir Robinson came out of nowhere, right? And he had 11 carries for 39 yards. That's not a great yard per carry, but he had 2 touchdowns and he made an impact on the game. He didn't have much carries before that. He was carried the ball 4 times before last week against Norfolk State. Then this week, Snipes comes around and he does it at a much larger clip, right? He goes 10 carries, 117 yards. So you're already looking at double-digit yards per carry. And then he also adds an additional 2 touchdowns. We know that the running back the running back room is the Elijah Burris show. But when you have players who, in addition to Burris, can make plays, can make impact, whether that's getting in the end zone, whether that's popping off big plays, because Snipes did have a 53-yard touchdown run, I just think it makes the running back room a little bit more dangerous. And to me, that was one of the things that I walked away looking at the box score, and I walked away with that the most of everything else.
You would be exactly right, Darian, honestly, with you. Watching that game in person, the offensive line for Hampton was strong. It has been for a good part of the season. I know it hasn't really translated to wins in some cases, but they really were strong. Jaquan Snipes is obviously the player of the game, at least for me. A lot of chunk yardage plays for him. He's very quick, willing to put his foot in the ground and plant and explode through the holes. I like what I saw from him, especially on that touchdown run. Being able to get to that second or third gear after getting past the line of scrimmage was a really big key for him, getting that touchdown run. And it just goes to show that even though Hampton's passing game, leaves a lot to be desired in some cases, it really is the running game that will be the bell cow. Either the passing game was of a higher quality. So I really do think that with Jaquan Snipes and Elijah Burris being a 2-headed monster this game, of course, Snipes with 117, Burris with 78, I think it's really nice addition to see how Hampton's offensive line and running backs complement each other. And then they kind of help out the passing game as well with Malcolm Mays, Chris Zellis, whoever's at quarterback, knowing that it opens up the passing games, whether it's screen plays, short yardage, long yardage. I think it's a really big benefit when it comes to having a really strong running game. So that's a great deal for the Hampton Pirates against Howard Bison.
Yeah, what was your biggest takeaway? Because I know we were talking about it, but what did you walk away with the game from, or walk away from the game with the most?
The running game. I know it's kind of a cliche thing. We just talked about it, but I think there's a difference between Hampton's running game and Howard's running game. With Hampton's running game, I feel like it is a little bit more out of necessity. I'll be honest with you. You had Chris Zellis, you had Malcolm Mays, but if you notice, Jaquan Snipes' 117 was more than Chris Zellis and Malcolm Mays threw together, 113. it just kind of goes to show that when you have two quarterbacks that both played a significant amount of time and their stats combined cannot equal one rushing yards total, I think that's a really big deal, knowing that, hey, maybe the passing game still needs work in some aspects, whether it's receivers, quarterback receiver connection. With Howard, I think it's more about the quality. I think their passing game was okay. There were really some bright moments, but with Howard, Eden James, Jared Hunter, they're just really that strong. Obviously, Eden James, 107 yards on 14 carries. Jared Hunter, 14 carries for 65. I like Howard's running game. We always have. We liked it when Ian Wheeler was there last year. But even with the two-headed monster it is now with Hunter and James, it's really complimenting and helping Jalen Tolbert, really get the job done at the quarterback position. So I think the real big thing is the running game for both teams, but how both teams utilize it and what it means for both of their offenses, there are some slight differences there.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point, because I don't typically look at it like what you need to do versus, but that's a valid point, because I'm not a big fan of the two quarterback system, right? And excuse me, I did actually, my key to victory, pat myself on the back, was running the football. I think that was my key to victory, basically because I don't like two quarterbacks, and I feel like when that typically is the case, you don't have a good passing attack, you don't really have a good quarterback play. But Chris Zealous, he had a pretty efficient day. It may not have been high yardage, but it was pretty efficient. He only missed one attempt. So what did you see from Zealous first off, and then we can go into both Zealous and Mays afterwards?
I think what I saw from Chris Zealous, especially the second time he came in, I didn't see too much of it. I think when I got to the game, Malcolm Mays was kind of the QB1 at the time. But when Chris Zealous returned for his second tour of duty during the game, I saw him be able to execute the offense. I saw him be able to take advantage of the short yardage plays that he had, still relying on that running game, but also using his legs. Let's remember, Zealous had 35 yards on 7 attempts himself on the ground. I think that kind of goes to show when you're a quarterback that's willing to use his legs, and we know Chris Zealous is athletic, I think it leans itself to know that Chris Zealous can make plays in multiple ways, but the passing game is what really helps him, when the running game is at its full capacity. Jaquan Snipes took a lot of the load off Zealous' shoulders this time, but knowing that he has in his back pocket was helpful, only to help further along the passing game, which it needed to at certain times. If you look at the box score, I know box scores don't tell the whole story, but both Hampton and Howard were passing on passing downs, second and longs, third and longs, after penalties. Those are times you need to get those yardage plays back. And Zealous and Tolbert, who we'll get to in a second, both are making the plays at the necessary times. Yeah. The difference really being Zealous was able to make plays with his legs, especially with that run, that 18-yard run at the end of the game, to help seal the deal, get in victory formation, and get the win for the Pirates.
And yeah, we're going to get into Howard in segment 2, but I want to keep it at Hampton. Defensively, they came in with, I think I've seen a graphic that they were top 10 yardage. I think that's going to change after this week. But what did you see from the Hampton defense?
It stepped up when it needed to. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing. Honestly, defense is a hard thing to judge for anybody that, is kind of a casual football fan, because really a defense showing up in the stat sheet is actually not a good thing more often than not. Like, I think that's the funniest thing. We talk about, yes, interceptions, sacks, pass breakups. We're trying to add tangible metrics to measure how good a defense is. That's usually not the case. It's usually the case of how little the offense does and how, almost disappearing, I would say, the defense is. But Hampton's defense, I really liked how they played. They got after the quarterback. Their trenches are still just as strong on the defensive line as it was on the offensive line. I think it's a really big key that I noticed that, rattled the Howard Bison offense, but it also just goes to show that Hampton Pirates defense is something legit. Now, I understand that 2 of those games were against Howard and Norfolk State. We know Norfolk State's offense is what it is, but I do believe that Hampton's defense is legit. I do believe that they had a lot of good plays, a lot of good tape that they had on Saturday night at Audi Field. It's only going to go to show as the season goes on.
And also, I want to ask you this, man. What was the environment like? Because I know that's a special moment, right? I experienced a multitude of TSU versus PVs. I don't know if it's the same everywhere. This is the only rivalry game that I've been to. But how was Howard versus Hampton?
I like the environment. Mm-hmm. I think the issue with it were 2 things that probably issue with the environment probably could have made it even better. Of course, Howard being a private school and being a little bit on the smaller side in terms of enrollment and student attendance, only so many people are going to be there. And It was at Audi Field, which is a city stadium. For those who have never been to Audi Field, it really is, again, a city stadium where the parking is limited. It's hard to get there. The tailgating was at least a block or two away. Those are decisions that people kind of have to make when you're a school that's really in the heart of a densely populated metropolitan area, excuse me. But I did like the environment. Hampton's crowd showed out. It honestly kind of goes to show because Hampton football has been successful in this route for the past decade or so. But I did like the environment. I did think there was a lot to offer. I was told that this game was played later than it usually is. Usually it's probably played around 2 or 1. This year was at a 4 p.m. kickoff. So who knows if that contributed, but I did like the environment. I do think with Audi Field being a soccer stadium as well, Audi Field has a capacity of about 20,000. So for most of the game, it looked like a decent-sized crowd, especially on the Hampton side. Howard looked a little small, and of course with their marching band kind of in the top corner, it was only, I would say, maybe about 100. That's probably being a little generous in some ways, but I did like the environment. I think it was a good idea for the game to be at Audi Field, and maybe not Texas Southern PV level. I think Texas Southern PV probably has the edge in that. But Howard versus Hampton is definitely a rivalry. I believe
I'll take it. I'll take it. I don't hear about it like that. But I will take the edge because the Labor Day Classic is my game. But let's push forward and let's look at the Bison because we took the time to look at Hampton. But now I want to look at Howard, and I don't have necessarily all the bad things to say. I want to highlight a really good performance by Eden James and Jared Hunter to begin with, but there's a reason that they lost, and we'll look at all of that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, and we have all been there in a moment when we just need a jump start. We wish we could just have the cables. We were a car. We put the jumper cables on and just get a real good jump start so that we can get through the rest of our day. Now, there's smart people and there's not smart people, and there's people who don't know no better, and that's the third group. If you don't know no better, here I am to inform you today that 5 Hour Energy is not a jumper cable, but it's the jump that you need to get your day started, get through a rough part in your day, maybe get through a late night study session, a late night cramming, whatever it may be. 5 Hour Energy gives that for you in a multitude of really good flavors too. You have watermelon, you have tropical burst, you have berry, and you can catch them at the cash register at the convenience store. They're everywhere, right? You've seen them before. Maybe you just haven't tried them. This is my sign to tell you to do that. Go ahead and go to 5hourenergy.com and use the code LOCKEDONCFB to get 20% off your first offer, or off your first order. And it can't be used with any other offers. But trust me, once you go back that first time, you're going to keep running back again and again. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Pelicans with Nola Jake. Go ahead and break down everything going on with the New Orleans Pelicans, so check him out. I'm here with Mason Smith. What does the T stand for? Terrell? Terrence? Trevor? You're Trevor?
Thomas, man. Thomas.
You're Thomas. Anyway.
Hey. Don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. I own it. That's my mother's maiden name, so I own it. Shout out to Mom. Yeah.
That's dope. But no, I just seen it because when you said this is my email, whatever, I said Mason T. Smith. I just put in the at name, Mason T. Smith. I said, dang, I ain't never noticed this T. What's T stand for? Anyway, shout out to you. Shout out to Moms. Anyway, Howard, they lost this game for the 8th year in a row. I've been there. Okay, so I know what it's like losing this game for the 8th year in a row. But let's start off with a little bit of positivity before I transition it over. I do want to know what you saw in the turning point and what led to them losing this game. But my biggest welcome sight, I'm not going to say it was my biggest takeaway, but I really enjoyed seeing this, is that Eden James had 14 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. That was good to me on a multitude of levels. He got more carries than you had seen him get throughout the rest of the season. He only had 18 carries coming into the game throughout the first 3, right? Going into game 4, he only had 18 carries. Okay. I'm throwing myself off with the math and I'm saying it funny, but Eden James had 18 carries coming into this game. And then in game 4, he had 14 carries for 107 yards. So I like seeing his workload increase. And then also you've seen his productivity jump. He had a multitude of big plays. He had, I think, 5 carries for more than 10 yards. So you saw the explosiveness. And it's not just because I enjoy seeing Eden James play. It's because I think that's what makes Howard special. having James and Hunter both be excellent running backs. I've said it before, and I've kind of gone back to this point at a multitude of times. I don't think that Jared Hunter is going to be your MEAC Offensive Player of the Year because Eden James exists. Because I think that they're going to split a lot of time, and I think that you're going to have games where Eden James is the leading rusher like today. But over the first three matchups, that's not what we saw. We saw an Eden James that didn't get a lot of carries. We saw an Eden James that struggled a lot against Mercyhurst, and we seen Jared Hunter be able to really carry the load, and he was the guy, not splitting time. I thought that that was interesting. But I personally think Howard is at their best when they have those two running backs who could both be a threat at any moment. To me, that is the best version of the Howard Bison, and that's the reason I thought it was a welcome sight. Because if Eden James can be your leading rusher in week 4, and let's say Jared Hunter is going to be there in 5, then you just keep going back and forth. Now you're dangerous. Now you feel like you're at peak offense, regardless of who's going to be the quarterback, whether that is Tolbert or that is Scroggins. So that was my biggest welcome sight. And Jared Hunter had a solid game himself. It's just Eden James stepped back up in a way that I've been waiting to see him do.
I'm gonna be honest, Darian. I know it may be recency bias. I do believe that Eden James, I just checked, he was a junior, so maybe he could declare for the draft, maybe not, maybe he wants to come back. Whenever Eden James decides to pursue a professional career in football, if that's what he wants to do, I believe he should be a lock for the Senior Bowl. Like, I think in terms of Senior Bowl participants from historically black colleges, Eden James showed me that he definitely has all the tools that you would want in, a high-profile HBCU running back, really a high-profile, college running back that should have a chance in the NFL.
And let me interrupt you real quick. Let me interrupt you real quick before you get back to that. I think he should stay a senior year where he can be the man. Yes. And then I think his value jumps, and everything you're saying becomes extremely more likely. So I'm right there with you. I agree with the breakdown. I think he should stay a second year. And for the record, I think juniors are now allowed to be in a Senior Bowl. So that's in case people are like, well, he's not a senior. Why would he be in a Senior Bowl? There's a new rule in which juniors can be in a Senior Bowl now. That's what Mason is keeping on the table. But go ahead, because I do agree with you. I just think that it becomes more plausible with a strong senior year.
No, I agree with you 100%. Eden James, for one, applaud him for actually sticking it out, paying his dues. A lot of people don't do that. Obviously, Eden James could have probably went to a number of other schools, HBCU or otherwise, to maybe be the man. He stuck it out as a sophomore. He was part of a three-headed monster with Hunter, James, and Ian Wheeler. Ian Wheeler's now in the NFL, or hopefully back in the NFL. Hopefully he recovers from his injury. Now it's Hunter and James, and we're seeing it. When you have stats that are a little bit identical like we had, James and Hunter both had 14 carries. I understand there are a lot of variables that maybe go into that don't tell the full story. But seeing how Eden James was able to get positive yardage after positive yardage, I think I texted you during the game how he had a really nice bounce to the outside, running down the right and getting to the end zone for that touchdown. That was a really, really nice run with really good vision. I am an Eden James guy. I knew he was going to be good last year. I knew he was going to be good this year. I had this confidence in it. But I do agree with you. He needs to come back for his – not needs to. That may be strong. But it'll be recommended. He comes back for his senior year and be the guy, the absolute unquestioned RB1. And with him being in the MEAC, it actually benefits him because, with MEAC being a smaller conference, they're going to play more FCS opponents. They may even have an FBS opponent on their 2025 schedule. So there's going to be game. There's going to be take for him to prove himself. Now, going back to this game specifically, I do like how Eden James was able to consistently get positive yardage. Same with Jared Hunter. Jared Hunter is still involved for a reason. Let's remember that, because it's easy to say, oh, well, if there are two running backs, most people may lean with the younger guy. Really, with any athletics, if there's two players of a similar stature, they usually lean with the younger guy because there's more to grow from that younger guy. But no, Jared Hunter is still in conversation for offensive player for a year for a reason. He's been an all MEAC performer for a reason. So I do believe that it's the right call to have both of them play. I'm just really excited what Eden James can do with an increased workload, with more carries, and what that looks like, not only for 2024, but a potential 2025 senior season.
Yeah, now they lost for a reason. We love their running backs, and I think the running backs performed well, but they lost for a reason. And what do you feel like that turning point, what do you feel like that deciding factor was that kept the game close, but ultimately Howard came out as the losers for this reason?
I think Hampton's offense was more consistent than Howard's offense. I know we talked about how both teams are running the ball, and that's evident. Howard has 161 yards on the ground, 225 yards through the air. Jalen Tolbert had a really nice game, but I do believe they kind of struggled at some points, especially we see the Tolbert interception. I also sent you the clip. Howard had a 4th and goal. It was a pretty good play call. Fumbled at the goal line. That may be more literal sense, but you cannot have plays like that in crucial games, especially when scoring's at a minimum. Yeah. I understand the score. I understand the score says 27-20, but as you've seen as the progression of the game, it was a very low scoring game. It really picked up towards the end, and deservedly so. Both teams are talented. This is college football. You're going to have players that can produce, but I do believe that Howard's offense had more miscues. There were things that probably held them back a little bit more than Hampton's offense. And quick note about that fumble. Hampton couldn't do anything with that because it was like 1st and 2. It was like 1st and 10 at their own 2, excuse me. So, of course, their focus was just, do a couple QB tush pushes, like, Jalen Hurts, shout out to Philadelphia Eagles.
Not shout out to Philadelphia Eagles. What? No.
Oh, yes.
No. Yes. Anyway, now go ahead.
No, but I'm playing. Either way, I'm just playing. At the end of the day, that is the play that they ran just to make sure that their punter had enough room to punt. But that was still a great stop by the Hampton defense. That's a really big miscue that Howard had. And they had one busted coverage touchdown that was called off the board due to an illegal receiver downfield or a legal player downfield. When those plays happen and they take points off the board or keep points from getting on the board for you, those are things you just cannot afford to have. But those things happened twice for Howard. So I think that's probably a big reason as to why. The more miscues on Howard's side than on Hampton's side.
Appreciate it. I thank you for coming on. I when you sent me that text message, you were probably just trying to show me the sign. But and it was funny. We're not gonna talk about it because that's crazy. But like
no.
It was a great sign. But boy, you didn't know. You saved me on that one. So you saved me. So I appreciate you. And I appreciate you guys for checking this out. So we'll continue talking about Tennessee State and everything of the nature. But thank you for coming on, Mason.
Absolutely.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, sports are in prime, right? In my opinion, as long as football season is around, sports are in prime. But you also have the WNBA playoffs, right? And not to just mention, football is NFL and college ball. Get some money on the University of Georgia, whoever they play this week. I don't know. They typically tend to cover the spread, right? The NFL, put some money down on Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know that, like, there's good odds. You can go to players, you can go to teams, you can go into awards on the futures. The WNBA playoffs are here. The MLB playoffs are here. I think NHL is coming back. They have every and anything that you could possibly want. So it's now on you to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. And now new customers, existing customers, everybody, you put down a $5 bet and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets. So all you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every moment more. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, and also really special appreciation to Mason for coming on and contextualizing things that we were able to see in the box score, but weren't necessarily, I don't tell the whole story. Everybody knows that. So I appreciate him for coming on and being able to paint that full picture with me, right? Tennessee State's loss to Tennessee Tech was the epitome of close but no cigar. And there's multiple moments that I'm going to go through. And you like, oh, close but no cigar. Close but no cigar. I would love if y'all paid attention to every time I say it. I'm going to try to count them up. I think it's 5 if I'm remembering correctly. I'm hoping that it is because that's my number. But Tennessee State lost this game by 10 and they easily could have won by 4. Before we get into why they didn't win, let's give kudos. We're going to do this kind of like a sandwich. We're going to have positivity, the reason they lost, and then some more positivity. Let's start off on a good note. Tennessee State's defense was locked down. Tennessee State's defense from quarter 2 to quarter 4, absolutely locked down. They allowed 14 first quarter points, and you may be feeling tight because Tennessee State wasn't scoring. The defense giving up 14 points on the first 2 possessions. The offense not scoring. You're not feeling good about that, right? But when I tell you, between quarter 2 and quarter 4, Tennessee State's defense was locked down. 14 points allowed in the first quarter. They didn't allow but 3 points the rest of the game. They didn't allow another drive of 30 or more yards once the second quarter hit. I think the first or second play in the second quarter was a pick six. So they scored points. In the between quarter two and quarter four, Tennessee State, their defense alone outscored Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech's offense, I should say, because Tennessee Tech's defense also got themselves a pick six that closed the game, which brings us to our first point about how it's close but no cigar. That is the theme of Tennessee State's loss to Tennessee Tech. I think that Draylen Ellis had a solid game. He had a decent game, but he is a big part of my first 2 points about how it's close but no cigar. Now, the first one, you're kind of driving. I think you're at like the 48, your own 48, so you're about to cross midfield. And you're driving down the field for what should be a game-winning touchdown or a game-tying field goal. And you throw an interception that's returned for a touchdown. And I didn't think it was a horrendous throw. I didn't think it was a great throw. I didn't think it was a great decision. I think it was like an out route to the wide side of the field. I did not love that. But I also thought it was going to be an incompletion. That was going to be a simple breakup. Instead, the defensive back broke it up and then caught it off his own deflection. I rarely see that. That was a phenomenal display of concentration to me, right? That's the first one, though. Close, but no cigar. And I'm sorry, Draylen Ellis, but we got to go right back to you. Now, one thing that you have to fault him for, I fault him for that throw, but what I fault him for even more is the throw on the first play of that drive. Tennessee State, looking to get a game-winning touchdown or a game-tying field goal, starts with the ball inside their own 10-yard line. Draylen Ellis buys some times and chunks it up. There's a wide receiver open. And I think if he catches it, touchdown. Worst case, he gets hawked down and you're in field goal range. Comfortable field goal range, I think. I didn't go back to watch it specifically, but I saw it in real time. And I'm telling you, he just barely overshot the guy. You know what that sounds like to me? Close, but no cigar. So that's two, right? Then you go into, you're down 3 points because you were down 3 points pretty much the whole game. Well, the whole fourth quarter, you were down 3 points into that pick six, and that pick six is what put it out the reach. That was the attempt to put in a game-winning touchdown or a game-tying field goal, and there was about 2 or so minutes left at that time. I think you started a drive of 4 when you missed that first throw. And you just, the way your defense is playing, they're not going to give up a touchdown. They're not. They've been playing too locked down. Before you even get there, Tennessee State drives down the field. They're down 3 points in the fourth quarter. They kick a field goal. They miss it. That would have tied the game. And like I said, it's not as if Tennessee Tech was scoring points for real. Even that field goal they scored came on a 16-yard drive. 16 yards, not even 2 touchdowns worth of yardage or 2 first downs worth of yardage. That was a really good display of defense. That was all you needed to do was make that field goal. It's tied up. Now, anything you do wins the game. That's close, but no cigar. Then you have the last one. Make sure I get this. Oh, no, that's the last one. Oh, no. Here you go. All of those things, that was the last one in the fourth quarter. But all of those things that I named were in the fourth quarter, all 3 of them. So we're only going to have 4. I've said the term probably 8, 9, 10 times. But it's 3 different moments in the fourth quarter. You overshot the receiver on what is supposed to be the game-winning or game-tying drive. You overshot him, and you probably could have took the lead that you would have won the game. I think that's the game-winning touchdown with about 3:50 left in the end of that. You throw an interception on a route I really don't think you should have thrown, even though I don't think the throw itself should have been intercepted. And then you have an attempted field goal earlier in the game in which you miss that would have tied it up. That's all fourth quarter mistakes where you're close, but no cigar. But what about the last one? The last thing that I have to say expands beyond the fourth quarter. And it's ironic that it's the number 4. And it's ironic that we're talking about the fourth quarter. Because Jay-Z, Beyonce, Blue Ivy, all of them, the Carter knows, they'll all be excited to know the theme of the force continues with the mouth of the South. Because 4 times Tennessee State got into Tennessee Tech territory and came out with no points in a game that was decided by 10. And it's only 10 because of a last-second pick six, really a 3-point ball game. This is a margin of a series. Throw the points out. This game was decided on a series. Tennessee State had the ball at their own 8-yard line. They drove almost into Tennessee Tech territory, and that would have been the time to get a touchdown or a field goal that would have put it in the OT or put it in the hands of the Tigers. But the reason we even got to that point is because 4 times the Tennessee State Tigers got into the territory of Tennessee Tech, and they came up with no points. 3 punts and 1 field goal attempt. That is the decision, or that is the difference maker in this game. That was the deciding factor in this game, is that every time that Tennessee State got close, there was no cigar. But hopefully, well, you're here, so it is close. And we got the cigar because you clicked on us. You made it all the way to the end, and I appreciate that. Tomorrow's episode, we'll be back. It's a new era in Clark, Atlanta. It's a new era for Clark, Atlanta. Oh, if you are in ATL, you should be excited. And we're going to break it all down tomorrow. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed.